Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I know it has been a while. Happy New Year. I hope I will be a little bit more consistent this new year, but I'm gonna go ahead and do the end of year tag, which is a little late, but I'd rather do it late and have my entire reading done for the year than do it early and not get to track the end of my year. So we're just gonna get started. I definitely did not make this tag. I'm not sure where it originated. This has been around for years and years. So yeah. All right, the first question, got a little notepad. The first question is the most disappointing book of the year. And my most disappointing book of the year, I do not have it anymore because I gave it away. Was definitely The Silent Patient by Alex something with an M. I'll try to put like a picture or something, but this is a book that I had had on my radar for years and years and years, and I was like, that sounds so good, that sounds so interesting. And then I did a 12 recommendations from 12 friends last year, which I didn't completely get through, but I got pretty close. But that was one of the books, so I was like, I'm finally gonna read it. And I went and I bought it. I'm so mad at myself for buying it instead of just getting it from the library. I hated this book. It was the only book that I DNF'd last year. And I personally don't DNF a lot of books. It's hard for me to just completely not read it and to like not get to the end of the book. But so I got about 130-ish pages in, and I just felt like I'd already read another book like this, and I was like, is this seriously going to be as simple and irritating and frustrating as that book? So I just kind of skipped ahead. I read a little bit here and there, and then I read the ending, and I was like, yep, it's the same thing, it's the same plot, it's the same ending, and I hated it. It was so disappointing. I'm so mad that I bought it, but I already got rid of it. So that was my most disappointing book of this year, was The Silent Patient. So I'm sorry to everybody who loved it, but I couldn't stand it. Number 2 is the Underdog book of the year. So I think for this one, I'm going to go with Roaring by Lindsay Duga. I was just not expecting to like this one very much. I don't know why. It kind of like put me off, and I just wasn't sure about it. But then when I read it, it was so much better than I thought it was going to be. I believe I ended up giving this one a 4 stars. So it was really good, and it surprised me. It kind of came out of nowhere on me. So I'd probably say this one. And then number 3 is a book that was overhyped. Ugh. I am going to say this is another book that I do not own, and I got this one from the library, thankfully, because I don't want to own it. I'm going to say this one is Where the Crawdads Sing for Me by Delilah Owens, I think, or Delia Owens. I think it's Delia. So this one has a whole like Netflix show and everything that came out with it too, I think. It was another of my friends recommended books of the year, and I don't know. I read this, and it took me a while to get into it. And when I finished it, I was like, that was okay. That was meh. But my dear goodness, why does it have all this hype? that was pretty much my entire reaction to the book. This was meh. This was an okay story, like, but there's nothing really that special about it. Why did this get so much pull and gravity? I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah, I didn't hate it. It just blows my mind that it got such hype, because I don't see why. Yeah, I think that one was like a solid 3 stars for me, so something like that. Number 4 is my favorite book couple. I know this one. Okay, I believe their name is Bree and Nathan. Yeah, Bree and Nathan from the cheat sheet. They're like the cutest thing ever. This is a friends to lovers trope, and they're just adorable. Just adorable. I love them. Favorite main character. Ooh, favorite main character. out of all the books I read, really hard one. I feel like Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service, maybe. I'm kind of blanking on a lot of main characters from my books, but this is a, you know, I feel like character, so yeah, Kiki's such a fun, loving character, and this was a very nice, light little novel, so probably Kiki. A book, number 6, is a book that surprised you. A book that surprised me. I'm gonna say Where the Red Fern Grows. A friend recommended this to me, and she was like, oh yeah, that was my favorite book as a kid, you have to read it, and I never read it. And I don't know, like, I'd heard about this, and I was not expecting what this book was. I knew this book was a dog book, so I was kind of expecting it. But I was so surprised by how much I loved Wilson Rawls' writing, how much I just loved the story, like how graphic this was for being a middle grade children's literature. Fair warning. Yeah, I was just surprised by a lot of things about this book, but very good surprised. So probably Where the Red Fern Grows. It surprised me a lot. And then number 7 is new favorite author you discovered in 2023. And so I'm also gonna say Sarah Adams. The Cheat Sheet was my first Sarah Adams book, and I read it this year, and she is a closed door, like, clean romance author, and that's the romance I read. I don't do no spice, so I really, really like her. I got When in Rome, and I haven't read it yet, so I'm hoping to read that this year, but I'm definitely wanting to read a lot more of her because I really loved the story and her writing style. So that would definitely be my newest favorite author that I discovered this year. Number 8 is my happiest read of the year. I know I'm using this like 3 times, but it's for author, couple, and now book, right? Honestly though, I read this in like a day, and it just had me so happy and giddy, and I like wanted to reread it for like months after, and I was like, I need to wait a little bit, and I probably will reread it this year. This just made me so happy. It really did. It was not like a romance novel that like made me so frustrated throughout the majority of it. Like, there's always some frustrating moments in books, but this just made me really happy all around. It really did. It made me so happy. So yeah, sorry for using that same book for 3 prompts, but not sorry. And then number 9 is your most frustrating book of the year. I want to say this is one I do not own either. I got this one from the library, and it was another of my friend's recommendations, An Anonymous Girl by somebody Greer, I think. This was the first psychological thriller I read months before reading The Silent Patient, and this was just bad. So bad. It was just the style of the novel I didn't like. I felt like the very beginning had kind of a concept that could be interesting, and then they pretty much just like walked away from it and turned it into something else. And from what I've taken away from psychological thrillers is it's all about cheating, and that's it. Like, oh, somebody cheats and now we're all gonna go crazy and be like a crazy psychopath over it. And that was pretty much the plot of both those books to me. So, and I don't like reading about that stuff. But that book especially, like, I feel like, I don't know, it was just something about that book, but there was so much constant stuff and not enough like interesting plot line that it was just going through the same motions, and it was so frustrating. I was just so frustrated at the book all the way through, and I was like, don't be what I think you're gonna be, and it was what I thought it was gonna be. So, An Anonymous Girl, do you not like? Number 10 is the best adaption of the year. I don't really watch a lot of book to show or movie adaptions, and I don't recall watching any this year in particular, so I'm just going to skip that one. 11 was the longest book you read this year. I believe, this is kind of sad when I was looking at this. I was like, I didn't really read like a lot of long books, but I believe Aragon by Christopher Poloni, which was my husband's suggestion, and this is his copy. Yeah, I believe that was my longest book. It was only like around 500 pages, so, and there wasn't like a lot of competitions for it either, so I think most of my books were like 200 to 300 pages type of range, and I was like, wow, apparently I don't read a lot of long books. The shortest book you read this year, that is easy. That was Narrow Gate, Narrow Way by Paul Washer. This is actually one of his sermons turned into and put into like book format, and I read this in like an hour and a half-ish when I was like sick and couldn't sleep. Really, really amazing book if you're looking for a Christian nonfiction sermon type. Wow, this is really good. It's got a lot of good stuff. It's one of my 5-star reads of the year too, so definitely recommend that one. And then next we have my favorite book covers. Oh my gosh, so many. I mean, we have the cheat sheet, which I love, right? I also love Where the Red Fern Grows, honestly. And my Kiki's. My Kiki's is beautiful. But I also have Unbroken from Lauren Hillenbrand. I love that cover. I love that cover so much. And then Little Sparks is The Wedding with the Swans. I think that's so pretty. So those are probably, well, okay, there's one more, but this is actually my husband's copy. Share Jesus Without Fear. I just love that. And the cross silhouetted over top. So beautiful. So yeah, those are probably my favorite book covers. And number 14 is a book you haven't stopped thinking about. Okay, so I feel like this one's kind of itchy because I read this in December, so like it hasn't been that long, but I read Phantom of the Opera, and that was so much better than I thought it was going to be, and I'm like kicking myself for not reading it earlier. I absolutely love it, and Emmy here on BookTube talks about it, and I think that's her name. I'm so sorry if I got your name wrong, but that's one of her favorite books, and I heard her talk about it. I was like, I'm gonna finally read this book because it's been on my shelf for like 4+ years. Oh my gosh. And yeah, she knows what she's talking about. She knows what she's talking about. This book is so good, and I keep thinking about parts of it. And I have a stage production of it too and everything that I have yet to watch. I've never watched it, and I was like, I really want to watch this now. I'm determined to watch it now. But another one that I'd say I read earlier in the year, I'm gonna say two. One, I would say Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. This is a World War II story of survival, resilience, and redemption. And I think back on like just parts and stories and things in this a lot with just, you know, in relation to things going on in the world and stuff. It was really, it took me a long time. It took me over a year to read all through it, but I finished it up and read the majority of it this year because I finally started like really chugging through it. It was just something that like I reflect on. And then the other one I would say is one that I listened to on audiobook, and that was The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. that one really surprised me too, honestly. I could probably put that for that one because I had no idea what I was getting into. It was a friend recommendation. I didn't know anything about the story. I'm so glad I listened to it on audiobook because this was such a beautiful audiobook. Like, my dear goodness, if you have the chance to listen to it on audiobook, I would definitely recommend listening to it on audiobook. But there were a lot of great quotes and beautiful quotes. It's very poetic, very lyrical. That I'd love to have a copy to actually be able to highlight and stuff in. But yeah, just things and little things. Like, I remembered, like, I'm not quite thinking about it as much, but I'm pretty sure I read it in, like, it was one of the first few months of the year. So, and I was thinking on it for quite a long time. So, yeah. All right, and the next one we have is number 15, and it is Cringiest Book You Read This Year. Now for this one, I believe I'm gonna have to go with one of my middle grade books that I read. I try to read a good variety, and sometimes I get interesting, like books that look interesting or things that I remember reading for my daughters when they get to that age to kind of check them out when I find them cheap. And I read The Tale of Emily Winsnap and The Dork Diaries, which I used to read The Dork Diaries when I was younger, and this was something I was checking out. And both of these were kind of cringy to me reading them now. This especially, I was like, oh wow, I read that, okay. And this was just, yeah, very middle grady, but not like the kind of middle grady that I feel like is good and easy for everybody to participate in. Okay, and number 16 is an unpopular book that you loved. So I do know, yeah, this one is actually very, very unpopular. And it's Dare to Discipline by Dr. James Dobson. I have seen so much hate and so much shade on this book, and after reading it and reading the comments, what people were upset about, I was kind of like, did you read the book though? Because that's not what he said at all. He kind of specifically said not this. It's kind of one of those instances of like, he says something and you just like blow it out of proportion and are like, how dare you say to do this? And he's like, but I didn't say that. I specifically said, don't do that, but also don't do the other extreme. It's kind of like I'm gonna read between the lines and it's not actually what he's saying. I don't know. I did a lot of like highlighting of different things and underlining in this. I was going into this very much like, ooh, a lot of people don't like this book. I wonder if it's gonna be any good. And I honestly liked it. I really did. I really analyzed this a lot. Me and my husband did together. I loved it. And another one I'm gonna say is at the bottom here because it's big. I haven't heard a lot of stuff about this book in particular, but I know a lot of people don't like these people. And I know a lot of people don't really like satire or humor. So, The Babylon Bee's Guide to Democracy, I feel like is probably not a very popular book, but man, this thing is hilarious. They throw punches at anybody and everybody, and I just thought it was hilarious. It also actually has like true like historical things in here along with the satire. Like it amazes me how well done this is for a satire book. I mean, they could have just been complete whatever, but they go through like the different branches of government and all of this stuff, and like while everything they're saying about it is all whatever, how it actually works and everything is how it actually works. So I very much enjoyed this book. Okay, and the next question is number 17, and that is, what is your highest and what is your lowest book you read, like rated, highest and lowest rated book that you read on Goodreads, and do you agree? So basically it's what's rated the highest on Goodreads and what's rated the lowest on Goodreads, and do you agree with it being rated that? So the highest rating on Goodreads of all the books I read, which I was actually pretty surprised. I didn't read a lot of really low rated books to begin with. Most of them are all 3 or above. But the highest rated one was, I don't know where it went now, Narrow Gate, Narrow Way, though, by Paul Washer that I'd showed a few minutes ago. Here it is. Yes, and like I said, this was one of my 5-star reads, so I definitely agree. This is a fantastic book. And then the lowest rated one was Waiting for Tom Hanks, which honestly I agree too. I definitely agree. I hated that book. It is a romance that I hated, and I don't hate a lot of romances, but I really hated it. So I agree with Goodreads assessments this time. And number 18 is your favorite quote of the year. I honestly didn't like journal or keep the best track, so which is something I want to do this upcoming year. But yeah, I'm gonna pass on that one. And 19 is book with the most unique concept. I feel like The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto had a very interesting and unique concept to me. Also, this is kind of like a sci-fi. This is Gathering Blue by Lewis Lowry. This is a companion novel to The Giver. And this was also very interesting, unique concept. I'm pretty sure they kind of interweave in the world though. So I'm still a little hazy on some things and what exactly is going on. I think there's still 2 more novels after this one. All right, and number 20 is a book that you would reread. I don't know, I feel like I read quite a few books this year that were like good and that I would like very much like to reread. No, I would definitely like to reread probably Phantom of the Opera. I feel like I will definitely reread that. I'll definitely reread The Cheat Sheet, Where the Red Fern Grows, Share Jesus Without Fear, Narrow Gate, Narrow Way. Feels Like Family by Cheryl Woods. This is the Sweet Magnolias series. That's the 3rd book in the series. Babylon Bede's Guide to Democracy was hilarious, so I would definitely reread it. So yeah. And then number 21 is your reading goal reflection in your 2024 reading goal. So my reflection of this year is, I mean, I did a lot better. I knew that my year was going to kind of be sporadic and hard. And so I just kind of set my goal as 12 books, like the 12 books that I would get from friends. I did not read all of those 12 books. I read 10 of those 12 books, so not too bad, but I did surpass my reading goal overall, and I read 42 books, so I was very, very proud of that fact. My reading goals for next year, my 2024 goals, I am really wanting to get a reading journal and actually like keep better track of my reading and just of my thoughts and like favorite quotes and stuff like that, so that I can like remember them and have a place to. So I want to get that, and I also have a goal of 50 books this year. I have, looking back at my Goodreads, realized I've gotten so close to 50 books quite a few years, and I've never hit 50 books. So I really, really want to hit 50 books this year. That would just be amazing. So last and final question of the end of the year book tag is, what are you prioritizing in 2024 with your reading? I feel like one of the things that I need to prioritize is actually getting through my physical TBR and not buying as many books. Maybe not buying as many this year, and at least like getting my physical TBR. I'm trying to remember how many books I have on my physical TBR. I'm pretty sure it's over 100 though. I would love to get it down below 100, you know. Maybe, I don't know, but yeah, I think that's my major priority is just to read off my physical TBR and to get through those. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me for the end of year book tag. I enjoyed talking about the books that I loved and I hated, and I like the concepts of this because it's not all, you know, I could still make a favorite books tag because I feel like I didn't talk about them all, or worst books tag because I feel like I didn't talk about them all. But yeah, I enjoyed this, and I hope you guys are having a good beginning of your 2024, and you guys have a good rest of your day. All right, bye guys.